Okay, final video for the guide is to go over the quiz designer prompt and the ability to create customizable low stakes assessments that are both for your subject and for your audience, but also through this lens, thinking again about that idea of customizability and taking something that is going to start out looking like an elaborate prompt and basically encoding that into the model itself, something that you can come back to that's repeatable, that will still give you sort of a dynamic interaction based off of the inputs that you give it. Let's kind of start at the end point and work our way back to show you kind of what I mean by this. And so let's start with, again, we've got our assistants off to the right, and we've got our custom instructions here. So I will just go here and do select quiz creator, and I'll just say, help me create a quiz. Now, previously I could do that, say, help me create a quiz, and maybe I would give it, all of this. I would give it these instructions here. So, again, I'm a teaching assistant specializing in creating diagnostic quizzes to assess knowledge. It's going to ask me, what topic do I teach? What's the level of learning of your students? Now, I could go in and prompt this and on my own probably get all this out. But I didn't have to do that, did I? I just said, help me create a quiz. And if we were to go back here, and I once again just did the same thing, quiz creator, even just say, help me. And again, it gives me the same, it's going to ask me the same thing again every time. So how does it do that? How do we get it to go like that and be able to come back and have it be repeatable? Well, it comes through doing these assistant tabs here. So I would take the prompt, and I'll show you the prompt here shortly, and I would create an assistant that basically is just you giving custom instructions to the model to do a certain set of things every time, and only those things when you prompt it. So we're going to come back to this idea, but let's take a look at the actual prompt that used to generate that automatable response. So you'll look at this very big, long, highly detailed prompt, which again is counterintuitive to the way we normally do things. To give when we're Googling, we want the most efficient search terms possible. We want precision. Here, we're giving it a lot of context. And I'm not going to ask you to read all this here. I will put this specific prompt. This is from Ethan Mollick, a couple of the papers that he's done on various sort of instructional design types of prompting use cases. But we're not going to read through all this stuff. So I've kind of broken this out below. These are the same steps, just given out in a little bit more of a readable fashion. So we saw this when I first prompted and just said, help me create a quiz. It said, introduce yourself. It did introduce itself as a teaching assistant, what it's good at. And then we got those two questions. Ask the teacher about the topic they teach and about the educational need. And, it's important here, wait for the teacher to respond before moving on to the next step. That's basically, if you've ever done any programming at all, or even if you've not, that's a lot of what computer programming is. Like, ask this, check this. If this is true, then do this. If not, wait. It's a set of instructions. And that's what we've done, but we haven't written a single line of code when we're doing this, and it's going to gather specific information about the topic. It's going to ask 2 or 3 points the student should learn about the topic, so your learning outcomes or your main kind of baseline objectives. It's going to ask you about any common difficulties or sticking points. So that it'll change its response based off of the feedback that you're given. It'll design the quiz, which will be 5 multiple choice questions, 2 open-ended questions. You'll get an answer key, and it'll kind of help you refine and explain the role. So that's what we're doing, but that's just the long prompt here. How do we take that? Because this is nice, it's novel when you're first doing it, but you're not going to come back and even copy and paste, and certainly not going to write this kind of thing every time. It's too long. We're busy. It's fun to play around with, but realistically, we're going about our day. Maybe we don't have time to do this all the time, right? And this time last year, we would have had to have come back and done that. And that is where these these assistants come in. So this is an earlier version I've created here off to the right, just called it Quiz Creator. This is one I specifically created. And if we go in here to the edit template, you'll see the template that you do. So you just put in Quiz Creator, and here's the instructions. Those are the same instructions we had before. And again, we have our data sources here. So you could augment this, and I did this with my Coursera course. I uploaded my files, and I just wanted I wanted to ground it in the materials that I gave it, so you don't have to necessarily rely on the training data that you've done before. So to do this, we would go up to the right hand corner here to this assistant prompt. We'll just call this more Quiz Creator. And we could add a description if we need, or we could just go and put the prompt straight away in here. We save that, and that's going to create that assistant, and it should pop up there on the right hand side. Same idea over here on the custom GPTs. The assistants here are basically the Vanderbilt Amplify version of creating the customizable GPTs over here. So if we look at the same thing, this is a same version of kind of that assistant that I created in GPT-4. This is called a Quiz Creator. If we look in the edit function here, we've got the same thing in this kind of configuration tag. I gave it a name, I gave it a short description, I gave it the same prompt. Here it's got the conversation starters. So instead of having to say, help me, I could just, it'll bring up this design. You can just click this button and it'll kind of start designing for you. And then you can again kind of upload files here as well. But that idea of, again, repeatability, customizability, creating basically an app that you come back to every time that will give you those same questions. And here you go, it gives it to me a little bit differently in format, but the same questions are being asked. Could you please tell me what topic you teach and the learning level of your students? And so if you wanted to do these yourself, you got the Explore GPTs function here. People create their own. There's some out of the box there. But to create one similar to the assistants, you have this sort of conversational interface where you can actually talk with GPT-4 as you're building your tool, or you can configure it in the way we've done here before, where I just saw you give it your name, you get the prompt, and upload files, which I had done previously. So again, just that idea of, it's not just, there are other things you can do besides create a quiz using these tools. That's just the method that we showed in the workshop. But the main thing is, again, taking things that used to be a prompt and making them repeatable and customizable. And more of the tools that are coming out make it easier and easier to do that, and help you expand your creativity and help you sort of refine it and make things a little bit more customizable.